Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We're in the Doors to Darkness campaign or adventure book. It has like 5 or 6 adventures in it. The adventure where my players are in is the Darkness Beneath the Hill. This is my Wednesday online campaign. It's taken us a while to get through the adventure. The party has spent like 4 or 5 game nights to get to the end. This is the final of their experience in it. This is the first time I'm talking about it online, so it's version 1 of me running this, but I've ran this adventure 2 other times, and I plan to run this adventure more, but only for new players to Call of Cthulhu. The reason is if you've listened to this adventure, then when you go to play it yourself as a player, you know what's going to happen. It's not going to be as much fun. You're not investigating and discovering stuff for the first time. That said, if your group's played it once and then you play it again, well, you kind of know what's going on, but then you could dive in more role-playing and stuff like that if you didn't dive in enough the first time. But fair warning, there will be spoilers to this. As I said, this is their final adventure night in it, so this is the adventure wrapping up. Don't listen any further if you're planning to play this in the future as a player. This will ruin it with the spoilers that are in it. So where we last left off, last update, the party was in a chamber with sacks, leathery sacks hanging from it. When we played this Wednesday, we had a few technical difficulties going on, and the fact that I was very tired for some reason. So I was half falling asleep the entire time I was trying to run this for them. But where we last left off, they were in the game. It's called the Suspended Animation Chamber. There are like 21 leathery sacks hanging from the ceiling. They're all about human size. And then one of them is open and kind of decayed. The party decides to investigate the sacks a little bit further at the beginning of the adventure this time. After exploring the options of what's in the sack a little bit, they decide to burn them. I don't remember how they set fire. I don't know. Oh, they used some oil from their lamp. They asked how much oil they had. I remember that now. So they splashed it with some oil, and then after that they lit it on fire, and then they had to make con saves as the sacks began to burn because they started releasing a poisonous gas. The party retreated out of the room as the room caught fire, and they saw the sacks burning up. After leaving that room, they are back into a corridor where they have, let me get to the map to refresh my memory, where they had 2 options. When they came down this corridor, they had a fork that they could go to the room they're in now, or they could go down to another room. And I think they asked which area had the lower grade, and they followed it, and that was the room they're in now. So now they got to kind of go uphill a little bit following the path if they want to go the direction they haven't went. And that's what they picked. They choose to sneak around as best they can, and then they come to room 11, which is on the map known as the lair. And there are 5 markings on this map. The lair itself, a living area, which is to the north part of that room, an alcove, which has bars in front of it, which is more or less the prison. And then 14 was the laboratory, and 15, there's a swirly kind of thing on the wall that the party got a description of, but they never interacted with. And for those that would like to know, that is a old-fashioned gate of some sort. It is noted in the notes here that the lizard man, the reptile man, cannot use this because the lair is called the lair of Sizia Haris. And the lizard man for that is on the front of the Doors to Darkness. And unlike other lizard men in most fantasy games that are related to crocodiles or reptiles, generally lizards, these are related to snakes, even though they have limbs. So it is said that these are the creatures that God punished and removed their limbs. So these come before the time of that. And the map of his actual room he is in the laboratory at the time the party sneaks around. There's a bookshelf, there's areas around the laboratory. His back's to the party. Where the cistern was marked, that little alcove, that's the prison, and they see Josh Winscott there. There's a hot spring in the corner and furs and rugs that the reptile man's been sleeping on. The reptile man fails to hear them as they approach. So one of the characters, who's armed with a sawed-off shotgun, comes up to the lizard man and grabs his clothing and pulls him back into the sawed-off shotgun. At that time, he fails his. At that time, the lizard man counters with a mind blast spell, which was instantaneous, but also took away 10 points of the lizard man's mana. So which resulted in sanity loss. It was an opposed power check between the two of them, which resulted in sanity loss for the player, which caused a bout of madness because of the amount of sanity he had lost. And in that bout of madness, he had amnesia. Meanwhile, the other player's reaction to this was to freak out and fire at the lizard man, and he hit the lizard man for some damage. He was using a revolver, so he only did like a D8 or a D6 damage. Might be a little bit more. I'm not as familiar, like memory-wise, of all the damages of all the weapons in Call of Cthulhu. Anytime I think of the weapons, I think of D20 Modern, so I just jump to that as far as my explanation goes. But we always look up the real damage when we're playing the game, just so we have that and we're doing it more how that game was designed. Well, the lizard man tries to fight back. The guy with the amnesia pulls the trigger of a shotgun and ends up killing the lizard man outright. They find keys to the prison, and I think the keys were damaged. If the party would have attempted to use the gate on the wall, it costs 1 sanity and 1 mana to open, and it doesn't open in that sense as much as you touch it, you end up in a new location. And the gate's tied to another corridor along the riverbank, like the one they descended into this place. There's another corridor along the riverbank, 5 miles downriver or 5 miles upriver. I don't remember which. It's not that necessary to remember, but either way, they're like almost 5 miles away from where they started. So if they would have used the gate, they could have approached this 2 other ways. They could have grabbed Josh Winscott if they found a way to get him out of the bars without the lizard man noticing, and they could have went through the gate with him and escaped, leaving the lizard man there, but they'd be aware of the threat and they could attempt something in the future. Or, as of what was happening now that gunfire had went off, the remaining ghast had gathered some of the 8 men that were left, not necessarily all of them, but most of them that were left, and has rushed them into the room. The party hears these creatures coming, and one of them hides behind the doorway, the other one hides behind something just for cover. I think it was the gong. An 8-man sees him because he's behind the gong, and the gong stands up. There is a picture. There you go. The gong stands up off the ground. and he was behind it, and you could see his legs. So the ape man was heading that way. One of them was heading that way. One of them, as soon as he came into the room, was heading towards the guy in the doorway, but he blew him apart with the shotgun again. And the one that was headed to the gong was taken care of real quick, and that left one left. I don't remember if it retreated or if they killed it, part of me being half asleep. But either way, I know that that situation got resolved. The party opened up the cell and got Josh Winscott out, who's kind of been driven mad by his experiences. They take him with them, and they go back through pretty much the whole dungeon to get back to the surface. I think I had them have an encounter with the final gas, but I'm not sure. Even if I did, they made short work of it with that shotgun they got. The only disadvantage he has with that shotgun is it cannot shoot further than 10 meters and do damage. And that's because he wanted the sawed-off shotgun. But he's also playing a bootlegger character, so take it as you will. The party had taken a decent amount of sanity damage through this whole adventure. Once they reached the surface, they got a few rewards, as well as the next day I gave them the epilogue of what happened because I was just way too tired and I had to go pass out. But their reward was for rescuing Josh Winscott. They gained a D6 sanity points. For escaping and defeating Saya Haris, they gained a D6 sanity points. So now they're up to 2D6. For destroying the serpent people in their pods, they gained a D4 sanity points. And for defeating Aghast, they gained a D8 sanity points. And since there's 2 ghasts, if you defeat both, the maximum you can get for defeating Aghast is 8. So if you rolled 4 on one and 5 on the other, the maximum you recovered for killing 2 ghasts was 8. They ended up exceeding what their sanity was. Their Cthulhu mythos increased from this adventure, from 0 to 5 with their first encounter with the ape creatures. They gained 1 for seeing the gas, so there's 6. They gained 1 for seeing the lizard man. They gained some for the serpent god. And they gained 1 for witnessing the spellcasting, even though they didn't know what it was. So now their maximum sanity is lowered by, I believe, 9, unless I miscounted. So they can never have a sanity score higher than 90 now, instead of 99. And your sanity doesn't start that high, so if they recover more sanity over time, the cap is going to start affecting them. Now, after that, I had Josh Winscott start to regain his sanity now that he's not under that threat. The guys wanted to blow up that tunnel with some dynamite. And I was like, okay, well, that's doable. Josh Winscott would support that. In addition, he's re-bricking up his cellar. After that, he dives into researching things about these reptile men, anything he can find, historical or otherwise, and as well as ape men. And he starts to dive into different sorts of ape men, as well as the Bigfoot sightings and stuff. So, and he's going to send information to the players whenever he can to help them out and to have them investigate places for him. And that's more or less what all had happened. I don't remember if the party was supposed to get a monetary reward for coming to help Josh Winscott. I don't remember how it's set out at the beginning of the adventure. But if so, they have received it. So players, if you're watching this now, if you remember a monetary promise from Josh Winscott, you have received it. If you did not get a monetary promise from Josh Winscott, you're just there to help as friends, well, he does award you with any time you need, you can stay here, especially after he's bricked up the cellar, and B, he'll send you all information, research information for you guys when you need to and when you have a hard time finding stuff. So that is the horror beneath the hill. There are other ways it could have ended. I've had a party fight the ghast the first time and get defeated. I've had a party fight the ghast and the guy that was barehand boxer killed the ghast in like 3 turns, just boxing it to death. So if you use the characters from the back of the Doors to Darkness book, they're not as powerful as the characters that my players created. So just keep that in mind as well. Well, until we all game again, guys.